I'm Jim Ladd, and tonight it is my great pleasure to present part one of a very special two-part interview of Pink Floyd. We'll begin at Los Angeles International Airport, where we'll board Flight 760, a 10-hour non-stop flight to London. Aboard the 747, I had ample time to reflect on the past interviews we've done with Pink Floyd. The first in 1978 with lead guitarist David Gilmour. The second in 1979 with Roger Waters when we discussed The Wall, and again in 1981 when Interview brought you an inside look at the making of the movie Pink Floyd The Wall. This conversation, however, I felt would be the most revealing of all because of the subject matter of Pink Floyd's new album, The Final Cut. Upon arriving at Heathrow Airport and checking into my hotel room, it became apparent to me just how important it was to come here, to London, to conduct this interview with Roger Waters. During my London cab ride from the hotel room to Roger's house, I began to get a feeling for this ancient and historic country that has survived 2 world wars, a city now trying to survive the post-war dream. It was here, in this place called England, that Roger Waters grew up amongst the rubble and destruction left by the Battle of Britain. A childhood without the memories of a father. It is through these eyes that Roger Waters sees the post-war dream, and it is his vision that we have come all this way to discuss. The beginning track, The Post-War Dream, on the album, this seems to be like the overture of the album, which sets out the basic premise by asking the question, what happened to the post-war dream? Is that correct?
Yes. This is correct. Well spotted.
Spotted.
You're doing great.
So far, not bad.
So far, 1 out of 1 for observation.
You make mention in the post-war dream of the the Japanese, actually, is what you're talking about, the shipbuilding industry, and it's the reason that the English shipyards have closed.
No, what I actually say in that song is that, they're better at manufacturing stuff than we are, cheaply. Yes. And look what it's doing to them, if you see what I mean. The song is really saying, hold on a minute, we're competing with them, and they're winning. So we're all out of work. I'm not, thank God, but 4 million of my fellow countrymen are. And another shipyard is closing this week. There's another 3,000 or so. What I'm really saying is that there has to be, there has to be a better way than, trying to make the best car, the fastest, the cheapest. To sell to who in the end? I mean, why do we need 5,000 different models of cars? Really? And that that system of world trade, with the best man winning, is ceasing to be a satisfying game for the human race. The Western idea has always been that the best way to get the garbage picked up is to let people say, well, I can pick it up for $10, and somebody else say, well, I can do it for $9.50. And to allow the marketplace to decide everything. But that position is still desperately throwing out these very old, boring, I think, ideas. And unfortunately, our Prime Minister, like your Prime Minister or President, loves them, thinks these ideas do work, and is all in favour of them. The monetarist philosophy. I think people are beginning to think, no, we don't want to compete with each other. Whether it's a limited nuclear exchange in Western Europe, which I'm personally not very keen on.
And it doesn't really make your day to think about that one, huh?
It doesn't, no. I mean, whatever Ronnie Reagan thinks about it, I'm not keen on the idea. But I'm also not very keen on the idea of trying to sell mini metros to the third world in competition with the Japanese. And I think there is now just a slight chance that a few more people, as they come up through university and move into the civil service or the diplomatic corps or wherever, that a few more of them may start thinking along the lines of, well, hold on a minute now, isn't this rather wasteful? Isn't this a wasteful system? Never mind all the people out there in the third world who can see mountains of grain being kicked into the sea in Canada or wherever it is, and then thinking, well, hang on a minute now, why don't they give that to me so I can eat it? Because I'm dying.
In your possible past, this is a comment on people who we were just talking about, who cannot seem to learn from history, the many and bloody lessons of history. And the other line in here, a warning to anyone still in command of their possible future to take care. It seems like the Margaret Thatchers and the Ronald Reagans of the world, you know, damn what's going to happen, I'm going to get my plan.
Well, Ronnie Reagan, let's face it, is an old cowboy now. I mean, he's heading for the rodeo in the sky pretty soon. Well, for instance, I don't think Reagan is going to be allowed by the American people to play Star Wars. I really have a feeling that they will absolutely not allow him to do it. I could be wrong, but I think that they're going to just turn around and say, oh, F you. We do not want to play your stupid game, you silly old man. You know.
Let's hope so.
You know, you've been playing cowboys for long enough. You see, but it really is a genuine problem, you know. I mean, you obviously, you know, I don't know why I'm saying any of this to anybody who lives in America. It must be quite clear that, you know, having a man who, as the leader of your country, who clearly, you only have to look at him to see that that man would be happy if he could shoot the heads off 10 out of 11 chickens at 40 paces. You know, you can see, you know, that's, by the way he walks, you can see that that's the kind of man he is. And he's trying to run the most powerful country in the world upon you know, that kind of principle of, you know, I can shoot the heads off chickens better than you can.
Drawing from the hip.
From the hip, naturally. Yeah, he's the same personality from The Wall, too.
Yes, the teacher.
The teacher from The Wall is this man. It was a kind of, although this has very, you know, I think it has something to do with The Wall, and it gives him a raison d'etre, if you like. It explains some of his feelings that didn't get explained in The Wall, where it was a very thinly sketched character, you know, who didn't have any real reason for being as kind of horrible to everybody as he was. Well, I'm giving him a reason now, that's all, in a way.
Well, in The Wall, his reason was his
wife was horrible to him, yeah. But there's a bit more kind of depth to his character applied here. Somebody comes back from World War II, right? Gets involved as a family, maybe he's a teacher. Well, he is in this. He thinks that he's lost friends, one of whom is the gunner who's referred to later, in the war, and he thinks that they died fighting for the post-war dream. And they dream the post-war dream for a while, and it almost looks as if it's, well, you know, when the Cold War starts to slacken off in the 60s and things cool out a bit, and people, and there's a good buoyant economy in the world, and every you know, it feels good to a lot of people, and then that dissipates and disappears again, and we go into a world recession, and everybody gets uptight, and to cap it all, we go and have a silly war about a piece of rock in the South Atlantic that we're going to have to give away eventually in the end. I write songs, right, and which are an expression of my feelings. They're not part of a dialogue. You know, songs are a monologue. They're not part of a debate about anything. They're an expression of somebody's feelings. They're like when Picasso painted Guernica, he didn't think, yeah, well, you know, maybe somebody else feels differently about this. You write the song, you paint the picture, whatever it is you do, you just do it. So that has nothing to do with the dialogue.
Roger, first off, you told me a little while ago that when you write your songs...
I lie sometimes, you see.
Well, let's keep that in mind. Would you like me to rerun the tape back to that?
please, no. To have you grovelling about in your cardboard box looking for the right tape is more than I could bear at this juncture.
On the back of the new album, The Final Cut, is a simple dedication that reads, "For Eric Fletcher Waters, 1913 through 1944." We will now hear about this man, to whom the album The Final Cut is dedicated.
My father, anyway, was really in a state of change when he was killed.
How so?
Well, he'd at the beginning of the war, which is why I suppose I have a lot of trouble, really, with his loss, if you like, is because he was apparently a fairly remarkable person in that at the beginning of the war he was a devout Christian and objected to being called up on conscientious grounds and went before a tribunal, you know, as a conscientious objector. He was a Christian, and they said to him, well, would you be prepared to do other work? You know, and he said, sure, anything that doesn't involve killing people, I'm into. So he became an ambulance driver, and he drove an ambulance in the Blitz in London, and he then got involved in voluntary service. And so when he wasn't driving the ambulance, he was, you know, helping, you know, pull down old bomb buildings or whatever. And then he became, then he met people who were politically motivated doing that work. And he then started getting interested in left-wing politics and changed his mind and decided that in certain circumstances it was necessary to fight wars, notwithstanding his deeply held Christian beliefs. He decided that there was such a thing as a just defense of your country. And so he wrote them a letter and said, look, I've changed my mind.
It's an extraordinary story.
Yeah, so he was then, so they said, okay, you know, and he did his 6 weeks basic training, and because he had a degree, or I don't know, I suppose it was because he had a degree, they thought, right, this man is an officer. And he was commissioned in the Royal Fusiliers as a second lieutenant. So anyway, he joined up and died.
We're going to talk about the Gunner's Dream here, which is I like this song a lot. The first verse of the song seems to deal with a scene of a funeral service.
Yeah, well, yes. Well, no, the first verse is actually about him hurling himself out of a burning plane to his death. So
Oh, the very first verse. I'm talking about the entire stanza, but
Yeah.
the very first verse.
it goes 2 verses, chorus, right?
Right. Okay. Right.
Yeah, the first verse is floating down to da-da-da. The second verse, yeah, is about him thinking about what it will be like when they go to the memorial service.
Right.
And he's saying to his, whoever they are, his mother and father, I guess, hold on to the dream. Don't let me have died for nothing.
In the last verse of this song, The Gunner's Dream, you seem to be saying that you feel it's now your duty to carry on your father's dream in your own way,
Yeah,
which is true.
yeah, I do.
Do you feel that through your writings and the chances you take in these statements that you are, in fact, fighting in your own way?
Yeah. You know, I don't feel like a hero in any way. I don't feel that I'm taking any real risks myself. But I do feel the responsibility to say what I feel, because I do have a platform. And I know, well, I don't know, but I have a feeling that I may express feelings that lots of other people have who don't have a platform, you know. But that's not why I do it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not crusading in that sense. But having said that, if I have something in a song that's a bit, I'm not sure what people will think if I say this. I say it anyway. And if there's any question, I try and fall over the side of the fence that, you know, may upset people, rather than falling over the safe side. I'd rather be in the field with the dog when I'm writing lyrics and making records.
And how much of that is inspired by this feeling of continuing and making the world a better place? I mean, how much of that is the son's need to somehow have that moment where their father goes, "Hey kid, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
You did good."
Well, I think a lot of it is. And I think that a lot of, you know, almost everybody who does what I do has a problem of one kind or another. You know, otherwise I don't think they'd bother to do it. And I think having looked at it in some detail, I think maybe part of my problem is that I'm trying to live up to, you know, there's nothing so hard to live up to as a dead hero. Does that answer your question?
Well, we're back now, and Roger's been kind enough to light the fire because this thin-blooded Californian is shivering over here. So if you hear the fire crackling in the background, that's what that is. In Paranoid Eyes, the vet is now left, with only alcohol and his friends in a bar to try to cope with this failure of the post-war dream to be realized. And this is how the living are coping with this. But the question I want to ask about this is that aside from the loss of life and limb, those two things that happens in a war, would you say that this person's situation now, this middle-aged man who only has his memories and drink to keep him going, would you say that that disillusionment of the veteran would now be the deepest cut that would happen to someone? I mean, that seems like the ultimate insult.
Actually, well, I don't know what you mean to at some point in your life come round to realizing that something that you fought for was either an illusion, or that although you thought you'd won it, it never actually happened, so you didn't win it in the end. No, I in a way, I think that's part of growing up, you know. But I think it's very hard to make the step of growing up to that realization. If you've been through all that,
yeah,
it's much easier for you or I to do that bit of growing up, not having had to pay the price, if you see what I mean.
Sure.
But no, I wouldn't think that was a very... Oh, I don't know. I mean, there's weird stuff has been suddenly brought up by the Falklands thing in this country. Suddenly, there's been a resurgence of, well, what about, you know, the widows of the people who were killed in the Second World War and stuff like that? And there have been instances of, you know, people selling their husbands' VCs just to keep living. Because VCs are worth a fortune now, which is an extraordinary comment, isn't it?
What is the VC?
The Victoria Cross. It's our version of the Congressional Medal of Honor.
Oh, and they'd have to sell that to...
Yeah. Because war widows' pensions are pathetic, you know. And we like to, you know, oh, you know, jolly well done, chaps, you know, but we don't want to hear about it now. You know, when there was a Falklands Victory Parade in this country, they wouldn't let the ones who'd been burned and disfigured in it.
Come on.
This is the truth. Isn't that nice?
You mean a guy that went over there and got maimed was not allowed to march in your parade?
It was not good PR. That's the same thing with in America with the Vietnam vets. You know, they don't want to know about them. They're not interested in them now. You know, that's a bit of American history that we don't talk about anymore. I mean, Jesus Christ! I mean, thank God in the Falklands there were I think 200 British servicemen killed and Actually, I shouldn't say, because I'm not sure how many there were injured. You know, but we're still feeling kind of heroic about that, or we're desperately trying to. Not for much longer, I don't think. But the government, when I say we, I'm being sarcastic, because I'm not feeling heroic about it, but the British government, Thatcher, is still trying to cling on to the idea that it was a heroic defence of the traditional principles of Western freedom and democracy. But in your country, you know, they long since stopped trying to cling on to the Vietnam conflict as that, as being a symbol of that. So your guy, all the veterans over there, you know, who took all that stick in the corner of some foreign field, you know, are apparently, you know, apparently the current administration anyway is almost totally disinterested in them and their problems. Well, you know, whether you know, they're paraplegic from some appalling injury, or whether it's the after effects of Agent Orange or whatever it was, or the defoliants and the this and the that and the other. You know, it's bad PR. So they keep it down as much as they can.
We have now discussed all of side one of Pink Floyd's extraordinary album, The Final Cut. And next week, we will cover side two. But since we have a few moments left in tonight's show, I thought that we might cover some general Pink Floyd questions. But before we do that, I want you to meet one of the three most important people in Roger's life, who, along with his wife Carolyn and their daughter India, compose the most important facet in his life, his family. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to introduce you to a 3-foot blonde human dynamo named Harry. Please welcome Harry and his 5 coats.
Look at this guy.
Harry,
So hot.
what are you doing, man? Why have
I
you...
put this coat on, then I put this coat on, and then I put Mummy's raincoat on, and now I've got this, and now I've got your husky on.
What are you trying to protect yourself from?
Nothing.
Harry, would you come here a second,
Come
please?
Jim, come here. Oh, all right, go around.
That's fine too.
Yeah.
Would you like to say hello to the people in America?
Say hello to Jessie.
Yeah, I might do.
Come on,
Okay,
man.
go ahead.
Hello, Jessie.
Who's Jessie? Tell Jim who Jessie is. Turn this way. You have to speak because there. See that little microphone?
Yeah.
Well, just say. Tell Jim, because this is going on the radio. Maybe. Tell about Jessie. Who was Jessie?
Oh well, he's a boy in America, and I don't know what else to say.
He was
Oh,
a
he's
friend
a-
of yours, wasn't
Yeah, and he's a friend of mine.
How old is he?
Oh, 5 or 6.
Yeah.
I'm older than him, aren't I?
he? Just a couple of months, yeah. I like your outfit, Hal. It's great.
Thank you.
You look like something out of Star Wars. You look like
What?
I don't know, a sand person or something. Do you recognize this? Jim?
What the hell's this? This isn't the Dodgers, is it? It's a baseball jacket.
It's the Dodgers.
Is it the LA Dodgers jacket? Well, good for you.
It's really warm.
I'll bet. You're gonna melt.
I think we may have finished,
Come
Jim.
in person. We're almost there. I must ask you a couple more things
All
and we'll
right.
be done.
He said hello to Jessie. Yeah, you must put that in.
Oh, yeah,
if you
I'll put
can.
that in. Sure.
How big the coat would be if he wore 1,000,000 coats.
I have to do 2 more questions and then I'm
And then it's
finished.
all done. And we're gonna let your daddy come back to you. Get the door. Okay. Kind of puts it all in perspective, don't it?
Who was that?
Was that kid?
Who was that masked child?
All right, we'll do this very quickly, and I'll skip over kind of some of the technical stuff.
I can answer questions very fast, you know. You can do as many questions as you
Well,
want.
I understand you
No,
know, I've
go on.
had you here for 4 days, so I just don't know. First off, a lot of people are asking, is Pink Floyd going to break up because Rick Wright left and it's called The Final Cut?
But who knows? I doubt it.
Okay, well, I hope not, at least for a while.
Yeah, I hope not, at least for a while too.
Really?
Yeah,
You hope it doesn't break up?
yeah, why? Whatever for, you know.
And Rick left strictly to do his own thing, as we say in LA. The definitive answer from Mr. Waters. Aren't you glad that I have these hard-hitting questions, ladies and gentlemen? Okay. When is the tour?
No, there definitely won't be a tour. No tour.
It said in all of that press stuff that there's going to be a tour.
No. I promise you we are not going to tour.
I hope you've enjoyed part one of this exclusive interview of Pink Floyd. Please join us next week, same time and same frequency, for part two, when we will again meet Roger Waters and discuss side two of Pink Floyd's album, The Final Cut. I'm Jim Leah. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to part two of our exclusive two-part interview of Pink Floyd. We are back here again in London, England, at the home of writer, bass player, and vocalist Roger Waters.
Hear that? That's our dog, Stuart, who's the handsomest Cocker Spaniel in the world. Now, don't write in, all you owners of Cocker Spaniels, because I'm not going to argue with you.
As you may remember from part one, Roger Waters is an articulate Englishman who is not afraid to speak his mind.
Politicians, I think, tend not to be as interested in the problem as maybe engineers are. I think that's maybe what's wrong with democracy. Not that I'm saying I'd rather have communism, because I wouldn't. I hate the thought of everything being centralized and bureaucratic, and if somebody being able to tell me whether to have a rock and roll band or not, is more than I could stand. Well, God, I'd rather live in America.
Last week, we discussed in detail side one of Pink Floyd's new album, The Final Cut. Tonight, we'll pick up where we left off as we begin our interview of Pink Floyd. Once again, Roger Waters.
Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, it would seem to me that there ought to be a better way of picking who should lead a country than by having them stand up on TV and say, hey, look at me, look at how good I can shoot, and then you vote for them or don't vote for them. But then you come down to the idea of, where do you get the committee that picks the man who should make the decisions? Do you see what I mean?
And how do you pick the people on the committee?
How do you pick the people on the committee and But there might well be a case for saying, well, you elect the people on the committee and there's, 100 of them or something, and that they pick the man. He's not allowed to advertise, he's not allowed to speak to the public, he's not allowed to go on television, he's not allowed to try and get votes for himself. They have to look at people. In fact, he's almost not allowed to apply for the job, but that he should be obligated to accept the position if he's called upon to serve his country. In other words, I'm saying that you give yourself the chance to pick somebody for their ability to organize and to see problems clearly, or for their common sense, or for and you pick them to lead your country for those attributes, rather than picking somebody who wants the job. Because that's the thing, is that the people who get the job get it because they want it. And they want it desperately, and they've wanted it for 50 years, and it's driven them on through all the that they have to crawl through. To become president of the United States or the Prime Minister of England, you have to crawl through this, crap for year after year after year, and finally. And you have to really want to be the president, to be it. Now, anybody who really wants to be the president of the United States of America is totally unsuited for the job. So there is a paradox that we could apply ourselves to, but we don't. And we don't because we're frightened of an alternative to a kind of quasi-parliamentary democracy. And I understand that fear, but nevertheless, clearly, these are the wrong people to be doing the work.
Do you think that there could be an actual case made for megalomania for anyone presumptuous enough to be a world leader? That they would have to be a little bit over the edge?
A little bit, yeah. I think you'd have to be a little bit. You see, again, I keep harping back to this theory about TV. You know, that it in the 17th, 18th, 19th and early 20th century, these kind of phenomena were almost impossible to spot, because the only contact that you had with your leaders was by reading about them in newspapers. After the advent of the kind of mass-produced, you know, daily newspaper. But before that, it was word of mouth or broadsheets or whatever it might be. And it's only recently that we, the ordinary folk, have had a chance to actually observe them at reasonably close quarters. Because we now get a chance to actually, you know, not just to read the words that they speak, but to actually watch them deliver them. And because of this new, fresh insight into what they actually look like and sound like, it becomes easier for us to make up our own minds of what they actually are like. And a lot of the time, they actually are extremely childish, and they probably always were. I don't know Ronald Reagan, and I don't know Margaret Thatcher, but from the way they behave, I suspect that they're very frightened little people. You know, and they want that job to make themselves feel a bit bigger and more worthwhile. That's the feeling that they give me when I watch them operate. Go get him, Stu!
I know you're going to make me sound like an ogre here, but we have to have it more quiet. It's just not good. This is not going to be good.
All right.
I mean, after all, I am dealing with...
Well, let's go into that room in there.
Fine.
All right, I'll pick this up.
We've now moved in... Let me just set the scene here, because it's going to sound a lot different. We've now moved into Roger's studio in his house, which is undergoing revamping. All right. Now we move on to my second favorite song on the album. This is great. The Fletcher Memorial Home, ladies and gentlemen. Now in this song, I don't understand. You depict world leaders as overgrown infants playing with deadly toys.
Yes, what a strange idea, isn't it?
I mean, acting like infants, please.
I can't think why I wrote that.
So if you were in charge of the Fletcher Memorial Home...
No, I would never be in charge of the Fletcher Memorial Home.
Yes, you would, Roger. I mean, come on, admit it. You would love to be in charge of the Fletcher Memorial Home for a day or a week, wouldn't you?
Absolutely not. No, I couldn't be less interested. I mean, I'm not, you know, if they weren't f***ing everything up, I wouldn't be that interested in these, you know, cripples now. But if they were safely tucked away in some home, I would be deeply disinterested in them. And a lot of them are, of course, you see. There's very little difference, really, between being President of the United States and being locked up in a lunatic asylum, as far as I can see. I mean, the difference is that you have a lot more power, you know, to affect other people's lives if you're President of the United States. But you're followed everywhere, you're watched constantly, you have to observe certain rules and regulations, you have a very tight schedule that you have to adhere to, you get your medication regularly at regular times of the day. There are a lot of similarities. You're a kind of non-person. If you're Ronald Reagan, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
You know, the kind of person who ought to be doing the job, it wouldn't be like that.
You have keepers that...
Yeah, absolutely. You have people who write your speeches, you know, and give you the correct injection before you go out in public appearances so that you don't fall over too often. Stuff
Or
like
trip
that.
too much. We used to have a guy who tripped a lot. You remember him,
I
I'm sure.
remember him, yeah. Anyway, I mean, one can be... Actually, one can be too facile about these things, but I know I wouldn't want to be involved with the Fletcher Memorial Home. I don't give a shit about these people.
I'm going to put this out on the air because we're here to interview Roger, but just as a personal aside, you know, I think you would just love to turn the fire hose on the sleeping area or something at 2 in the morning. I could see you getting a kick out of that.
No, I wouldn't at all.
No?
No. I think that would make them feel good. That would make them feel that, you know, that they were involved. The point about the Fletcher Memorial Home is that these people are not involved in any genuine sense. Do you see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're beneath our retribution in my eyes. I do not want to turn fire hoses on these people. These are crazy people. These are people who should be pitied. That's the Fletcher Memorial Home is about them being locked up. I mean, I'm angry with them because they kill people, but once they're locked up, then presumably they're safe. That's the idea, anyway. I don't want to be involved in that. You know, it'll take a better man than me to go in there in the morning and teach him to make baskets. I don't have that kind of patience or tolerance. And that's why I don't want to be there, because people shouldn't be running the homes who are going to turn fire hoses on them. We should be kind to these people. I mean, these are not well people.
Let's talk about Southampton Dock here. This is where I see the Falklands really coming into it. And you talk about the Falklands War and how after 1945 we were supposed to put the weapons away and the sacrificial knives back into their sheaths and so forth. But once again we see sweethearts are waving goodbye to soldiers from Southampton Dock.
It's not sweethearts, it's Thatcher waving goodbye. That's what the lines, in quiet desperation, knuckles white upon the slippery reins. It's because she's failing to keep a grip on the country that she's having to have this war.
Very good.
Because she was finished, man. She was gone.
Yeah.
She was, forget it. She was, you kidding? 3 million unemployed. Pound slipping, this, that and the other. All her monetaryism failing. You know, the Falklands, this was the last wild swipe, you know, of a fallen leader. And it's buoyed her up. It worked.
So in her world, it could have been the best thing that could have happened was this dirty little war.
Undoubtedly it was the best thing that happened, certainly in the short term. I think history will castigate her for it personally, but it may well not. You know, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And I'm not saying that she sat down one night and thought, well, I think it's a very bad thing to fight over this little piece of meaningless rock, and the Argies have a perfectly legitimate case, you know. And it is true that they've been trying to talk to us about it for the last 20 years, and we've refused to. Not just Tory governments, but Labour governments as well, and blah, 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 blah. But notwithstanding all that, I'm in a pretty difficult situation because my ratings in the opinion polls are falling, so, God, what a godsend. Nice, patriotic little walk is the best possible thing that could happen to me. I'm not suggesting that she thought that. I'm quite sure that she didn't. But I think that she has the kind of personality that subconsciously, or those kind of feelings, impinged upon her capacity to make the correct decision. And I think she made the wrong one. And that's only my feeling. Maybe she made the right one. Maybe it was a good idea. You know, what it cost, 1,000 lives.
At this point in the conversation, Roger got up and left the room for a moment. When he returned about 2 minutes later, he was carrying a book.
The life and gallant death of David Tinker, Lieutenant Royal Navy, from his letters and poems compiled by Hugh Tinker. And it's called A Message from the Falklands. And it's a collection of letters and poems of somebody who's much younger than me, in fact. Hang on, let me look through this. This is part of his last letter. Certainly the trivia of life and the important things are all brought to mind by this, and how much the trivia are at the forefront of normal life, and the important things put away or not done or left to do later and then forgotten. Here certainly the material things are unimportant, and human things, values, the ways of life are thought about by everybody. There's just a tiny bit from a letter he wrote from HMS Glamorgan on the 22nd of May. He was killed on the 12th of June, so it was 2 weeks later. And this is a collection of all his letters. He says, I read that Argentina was prepared to accept a deal which involved Argentinian sovereignty and British administration and way of life. So it's a flag, is all we're talking about, really. Those to me sound fair terms to avoid bloodshed. Now that war has started, neither side can give way until the other is exhausted. This is not a war between civilized countries. It is not fought for any good reason. Trade, survival, top nation status, etc. But is fought on a principle by two dictatorships. It is a dangerous state of affairs in Britain when the Prime Minister can tell the forces to go to war without consulting even Parliament. Damn right. I don't actually live in a nightmare. I kind of observe it from an exalted position of a rather comfortable life with a, with a good woman, two nice kids, and in a really nice house, and I earn plenty of money, and I can do more or less what I want to. So it's an observed phenomena for me. I feel it, but in a way, I feel a bit of a fraud, kind of complaining as much as I do about things, because life's pretty comfortable for me.
The last time we were together, you made mention of that very, very clearly. We were talking about something, and you mentioned that. I mean, you earned this life. You work hard. I've watched you work hard. You're not someone who was given this life. You didn't inherit it. You earned it.
Who's to say that I work harder than a f***ing shipbuilder?
I'm not saying that, Roger, but you're so goddamn defensive about the money that you have. You really are, man. You're a very defensive guy about that.
Well, all right.
Aren't you?
That comes from having a mother who's a communist. Probably that's true.
I think it's one symptom of the defense-oriented mechanism to joke about that rather than answer the question.
Yeah, well, maybe. Yeah, I do feel guilt about the fact that I've got a lot and other people have got nothing. That's something I live with. That's all right. I'd rather that than have nothing.
I understand. Roger's not going to donate this all to Greenpeace tomorrow. Okay.
No.
But you do recognize this, huh? Okay. I think it's interesting. I think I'm trying to understand.
Actually,
what do you feel
I
like? You're lucky or something, or?
Well, yeah, I am lucky. There's no question about that. But there's a paradox involved in sitting here to you and saying, all this competition is wrong, and yet being very involved in a very competitive industry and winning.
And liking to win.
Yeah.
And liking the competition.
Yeah. All I'm doing is saying that I find that paradox uncomfortable. That's all.
You make a point in here about being in a relationship with a woman who reacts badly to a man in a moment of honestly showing her his weaker side. But she seems to react in a very masculating way. Why do you think that happens?
You mean that I write lines like that?
No, why do you think that phenomenon happens?
Oh, because we're all subject to indoctrination, and women are indoctrinated to the idea that the good man, is the strong man, and its strength is always seen as the archetypal necessity of a good man. You can't be good without being strong.
So even though that women are supposedly telling us guys, there I go generalizing again, that they are looking for a sensitive, thoughtful person, what they really want is the John Wayne type, no matter what they say.
If you have to generalize, that is what that song is maybe saying, yeah. I mean, again, as you've pointed out, you cannot generalize about these things, really. And the song is not meant as a generalization.
It was a specific instance.
It's a question. It's not an instance. It just says, if I show you my dark side, what would you do? It's an expression of my paranoia about how my my wife, or, you know, about how women might react to me, exposing my weak side. Or,
If you had a weak side, this would
which
be a
I
question.
do, which I'm not about to expose to you see, because this is personal and private we're talking here.
I understand.
Well, I mean, clearly I expose some of my weak side in my records.
Did you ever come close personally to making the final cut you described at the end of the song?
I thought I would... Yeah,
You did?
yeah.
What occasion?
I've done some of that. That's private.
Okay, I'll respect that. When did this happen?
That's private.
Just teasing. Now, we're going to talk about Not Now, John. This John is like in America where you would say Jack or Buddy or...
That's absolutely right.
Okay. In here you talk about the overamped and overambitious drive that is all that about the whales and nuclear war and humanity. We've got to get the contract, and we've got to get the money, and we've got to win. Do you think that this blind ambition to beat the wily Japanese or conquer the Russian bear, do you ever see that is in someday going to be replaced by the mutual cooperation we were talking about earlier? I mean, that could be a reality.
Well, I don't see any other possibility that will work, really. I mean, never mind the Russian bear and the wily Japanese. What about, you know, the Southern Hemisphere? You wait till they've got bicycles and television sets. I mean, we're in real trouble then. You wait till they start trying to compete. Yeah, and that's most of us. There's a lot more of them than there are of us.
Not to generalize, but...
What? Not to generalise, but there's a lot more of the third world than there is of the old and the new. And as soon as they get TVs, they're going to get well uptight if we don't want to cooperate. In fact, they may well say, you've had your go, you know. We want our go now. And expect kind of more, if you see what I mean.
Uh-huh.
More than their share.
Yeah.
So we have all that to contain.
Is the personality or the persona that you're singing from here, you know, you're taking on this... Actually, David is singing part of this and you're singing some of it. Is this the same mentality, the same character that's in Have a Cigar?
What, the one who's singing the main song? Yeah.
We all pull together as a team and...
Yeah. Well spotted.
Yeah.
So you have done your homework.
The final cut of the album is a song called Two Suns in the Sunset. It is an excellent song about one man's moment of realization that the nuclear holocaust has just begun. But before we discuss Two Suns in the Sunset, I'd like you to hear how two grown men tried to figure out where the real sun sets.
The sun's going down, so the two suns thing is about one sun being behind you and another being in front of you. So it's like thinking, hang on a minute, if it's sunset, the one in front of you would be brilliant, you know, and white and devastating. And
But the one in
behind
back is the explosion.
No, the one behind is the sun going down.
And the one in front is
Just
the
read the
explosion.
lyrics, Jim. In my rear view mirror, the sun is going down. See?
Yes, I understand that.
Sinking behind bridges in the road. I'm driving east. I want you to get this right geographically. I am driving east.
Yes.
The sun is going down in my rear view mirror.
Which would be the west.
West.
I understand.
Right.
Okay.
Suddenly there's another sun in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
This is wrong. You getting my drift?
I'm beginning to understand this.
Oh, wasn't that dull, listeners? Never mind. We got there in the end. I used to be the chairman of the Cambridge Youth Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament.
Really?
Sure was.
I didn't know that.
Yep. There I was. But I think that was partially because I had some of the feelings about it that I still have today, and partially because one of the few legitimate ways you could get out with girls in the evening. Know what I mean, Jim?
Not that I would know what you mean, Roger, but
And the early Aldermaston marches were definitely the only way you could get out at night, legitimately.
that Mum would approve of.
Yeah. And I did a couple of those.
Here in England, they are forming a human chain 14 miles long, linking arms. And I don't recall the 2 points. Do you remember?
Greenham Common, and it's Greenham Common passing through Aldermaston, which was the weapons research place. And it's a factory, I don't recall the name, but it's where they actually produce nuclear missiles or something, warheads or something there.
And there was also this a rhetoric by Margaret Thatcher, which has a point in a way, although I think it's off the point, but why don't they go to the Berlin Wall and do it there? And, you know, I mean, I can understand kind of what they're saying, but anyway, the point is that people over here are organized and they're doing it, and that's what's good, I think.
Yeah. The reason for doing it here and not there, if I might just answer her point, is that you're not allowed to do it there.
That's her point.
Yeah, no. Well, then it's a stupid point.
Yes.
How can you have a demonstration if you're not allowed to have a demonstration? You know, the onus falls upon us here, where in democracies so-called, we're fighting for freedom. We should be taking the lead. We should be. That's why the unilateralists have a point, is that we in the Western world should be taking the lead in nuclear disarmament. Because this feeling may well exist behind the Iron Curtain. I'm quite certain that it does. I'm quite certain that there are innumerable old, young and middle-aged people behind the Iron Curtain who don't want any of this bull about fighting other people. But they can't voice it. So therefore the onus falls upon us, who are allowed to, thank God, you know, to voice our feelings. That song, Two Suns in the Sunset, is about a real moment in my life.
Really?
When I've been out on the golf course, I can admit this now, because I'm not a proud man. Well, not very proud. I'm driving home, and I'm feeling good, and I'm looking forward to getting home, you know, and I want to see the people I love, and I've just had a good time, okay? And there I am in my car on a motorway going back to London, and it suddenly kind of struck me. The feeling suddenly struck me of, well, what if? And it had struck me before, and then but suddenly I could picture it very clearly, that I could almost imagine you know, the blinding flash, and then the shock wave, and then the heat, and then everything going, and the moment of being about to die, of frying, you know, and thinking, oh God, they've f***ing well done it, the bastards, you know, and we didn't do anything to stop them, or we did what we could, but it happened anyway, you know, and it's like I imagine that it's maybe the same feeling that you get when either the Standard issue comes through the door and they cut you away and shoot you and then throw you into the sea off Rio de Janeiro, or if you're in El Salvador, you know, and somebody with a gun that your good president has supplied comes along and blows you away and leaves you in a field. Or it might even just be a perfectly ordinary, by comparison, almost innocent, warped criminal who comes in and wants your money, you know, and kill. But whatever it is, that moment when there's nothing you can do.
That moment when it sets in that this is it.
That's it, and you have no recourse to the law, which is why I make that point again in this song that I made in The Gunner's Dream, where the dream is that that doesn't happen to you, if you see what I mean.
Exactly.
It's inevitable that it happens to a few people, because there are always going to be a few crazies who are going to come, you know, kill you.
You have no recourse to the law anymore.
Right. They're always going to kill you, one or two. But here we're talking about millions of people, millions, you know, everybody. nobody anymore having any recourse to anything, because you're all dead, and that's the end of it. And how kind of, you know, the sick thing is we won't be surprised. You know what I mean? Nobody will really be surprised.
What do you think the chances are of avoiding this scenario?
Which is why, never mind avoiding that scenario, which is of course why it got attacked over here.
Did it?
Oh yeah. But only by the people I was talking, the unmentionables who I was talking about. Because this is all very obvious stuff, you see.
Yes, but...
These callow youths who write for these music papers, they don't like you talking about any of this stuff, because it's obvious.
Oh, you mean the critics, the music critics?
Yeah, yeah.
Jesus Christ.
They go, oh, about nuclear. Even the guy in The Guardian did this. And this is, you know, this is one of our kind of liberal class daily newspapers. He went, oh, God, yawn, yawn, how boring, you know, another song about nuclear, about the Holocaust. How dull. Oh, dear, you know, I mean, I don't know what they expect. God, can't he write any new tunes, you know? Well, for all of those of you who are going to criticise my record on that level, I won't say it.
Go ahead.
It doesn't need saying.
I understand. Should go without saying. It's
Yeah.
beneath you, Roger.
Yeah, them anyway.
All right. Last question. Anything you want to say to those bloody colonials before I turn this machine up?
What do I want to say to them? Get rid of the cowboy before he gets rid of us.
Very good. Well said. Thank you, Roger.
Okay, bye.
I hope you've enjoyed meeting Roger Waters and Pink Floyd, and I would personally like to thank Roger and his family for their wonderful hospitality while I was in London. Join us next week, same time and same frequency, for another Inner View. I'm Jim Ladd.